Yesterday was a dark day for Terrans, and today might be the same. Let's find out on Impetus 2. We've got Eud in the top right. No, that's HitEmUp in the top right. Eud in the bottom left. Can you believe it? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Cosmonarchy cast. I am Pronogo. I am the lead designer of Cosmonarchy. So, of course, everything I say about the project is absolutely fair and balanced, and that's why it's the greatest RTS game that you'll ever play. So definitely go ahead and download it. You can access it through the Fraud Launcher 2, version 2, and it will automatically get everything done for you. And it's pretty good. Pretty good. So, shout out Veek for that. And shout out everybody who downloads Cosmonarchy. Pretty cool stuff. We obviously have some pretty high-level players coming out here with plenty of APM to spare in the early game, but also in the mid and late game, which is really where I think it matters. It's going to be Eud opening Fulcrum again, based on the fact that he's harvesting Vespene directly from the geyser, because you can do that in Cosmonarchy. And you don't need a barracks to make your factory. You don't even need a stockade to make your Fulcrum. You can just make your damn Fulcrum. Excellent. Gateway on the way, almost certainly, for HitEmUp, although he did have some nice success with the Lattice last time. I do feel like that's a little bit more of a coin flippy strategy. If you know your opponent is going Scrapyard, you know that they're going to delay their first military unit, and obviously now the Scrapyard's a bit cheaper in terms of time cost, so maybe it doesn't matter that much. Maybe it's... I think even then it was still on a bit of a knife's edge there. But despite that, if they just happen to go Fulcrum into Vulture, suddenly they can just sort of dog your Sims as they're moving out and do all sorts of crazy stuff with the mobility of the Vulture. It'll be a very different look. So with that said, Eud is going to go ahead and scout his opponent. He will see a gateway. He might see the secondary pylon back here. Impetus has a very large main, so this particular map, which is 2-spawn, I think there's a Maxiom game a little bit later on, which is a 4-spawn map. We'll eagerly await arriving at that particular match. And yeah, all in all, I'm just happy to bring this match to you. I'm happy to bring more games between experienced players in general. I feel like one of the things that you can always count on with these two guys is that you're going to get some pretty fun matches. Now, a couple of those were a little bit more on the... or rather, the last game that we saw was very, very, short. But I don't even know if it was particularly one-sided. It was just, it happened to show you the limitations, perhaps, of the Scrapyard play when it goes up against something that can, have a sneakier spike time. And even then, all the high-tech units got focus fired down. I think Eud still played himself into a pretty good spot. But he could have used the Ministry a little bit earlier to block the idle shots, and maybe then he also could have pulled the workers to try to get on top of the Sims and such. Obviously, you have to watch out for that, because you got to focus them down individually. You can't just be attacking willy-nilly like any other unit. It will be a fast embassy, and it looks like the Mason scouts up there, sees the gateway, and turns away. So it hasn't actually spotted that. Obviously, based on the training time of the embassy, it only now showed up anyway. So it will be a Matador first after the Vulture, so I guess Matador second. But he's first in my heart. And these two have been grinding out so many games that... let's just say it's hard for me to keep up with all of them, but I already talked about that in a recent cast. I was talking about how I'll probably need to open up a second channel for, the funny games, and then this channel will just be, the good ones. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. I could just publish the funny games alongside the good ones. Maybe that would still be good, but you never know, man. The YouTube algorithm is sometimes quite fickle and quite hard to penetrate. But all I can tell you is that we've been releasing daily videos for a while now. This is going to be our 81st video on the channel, so check it out. Stay subscribed, or get subscribed if you're not already. You know how it goes. Witness on the way. You can witness these games! HitEmUp is going to go ahead and just scout his opponent nice and early. And with only one Fulcrum producing units out of the Scrapyard, it does feel like it's a little bit hard to overwhelm his opponent. Whereas that's based on the quarry opener, right? I wonder if, and this is just pure theory crafting, if you suspect that your opponent is going to go one gate embassy, could you conceivably throw down, instead of the quarry, a second Fulcrum and just slam out blackjacks off of the one base, eventually getting your quarry with the excess gas? Would you even have any excess minerals for that? That's the real question. So anyway, it's an interesting thought. By the way, for a daily PSA, or not daily, but every now and then when I record a cast over, I talk about this. The economic rate here, as HitEmUp will be taking his natural in a moment. Wait for it. There it is. The economic rate is that each worker gives you about 1 mineral per second, or sorry, 1 mineral per second, or 60 minerals per minute. And so you want 2 workers per node, because the third worker is only half as efficient, which means that a fully saturated mineral field will give you about 150 minerals per minute. That's 3 workers on it, by the way, because the third worker is half as efficient. So the same is true for gas, but gas is so few in terms of the node count, you actually kind of want to oversaturate the gas. You can see here, the last time we looked at EUD's base, we only saw him having 3 gas workers on the geyser. Here we have a 3rd gas, he's immediately fully saturated the ridge. So clearly he's going to be going into some sort of gas-heavy play. He will be expanding with a ministry, no less. And I wouldn't be surprised if he just uses the scrapyard to field fairly stocky blackjack units, right? Mineral-only units, bank his gas until 600 and go straight off of 2 bases into an embassy. His opponent is going straight into the Wardens and the Engram, trying to see if he can make sure to hold this initial push if it does come to it. And the Witness has undoubtedly been seen by now, the Shimmer and such. So EUD going to go ahead and just expand out into it. But yeah, that gas count is banking and rising. He might not even be able to need to wait for the gas from the natural at this rate. 150 gas to go. And I think he's keeping his mineral count kind of high. I mean, he's still queuing up more units and workers and such. But I feel like that's the plan. I feel like that's what I'm reading so far from the situation. Now, he is also going to go ahead and move out. So maybe he's just going to go ahead and pretend that he's, you know, not doing that. 3rd Warden on the way. You know, it's kind of crazy. But what if you did charge forward with the Matadors, pick the pylon, and then just wreak havoc? I mean, you'd have to watch out for the Dracodins kind of shelling you, so it doesn't really seem like it's that possible. But maybe now that the Matador moves faster in the latest version of the game, maybe that would actually be feasible in this situation. We might even see that in the future. Starpad here to get rid of some of the excess gas with a stockade coming behind it. It's funny, if you put those two together and you look at the mineral count, you'd almost have enough for that Atlas. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He just doesn't actually know what his opponent is doing is the main problem. So, you know, he needs to get a little bit of confirmation on that. When he scouts the Engram, he'll probably go straight into the Tier 2, is my thinking. But, hey, I'm not inside EUD's head. I can't know for sure. Engram cracks a shot off. And, hey, no casualties just yet, so that's something. But, yeah, he sees that. Does he immediately go back home? Yep, looks like he's headed back home. You can use Alt to see people's order lines and such. Now, he's got 4 Mason production. And immediately, yeah, he's going to pivot off and go for another expansion. Interesting. So again, not going to go for the Tier 2, at least not until the Treasury goes down. Interesting choice. Vestry coming up for some healing. Because if you get the Tier 2 up before the... oh, okay, well, we actually... Where is that? Oh, it's all the way back here. Okay, he's got a Pocket Crucible and an Ancestral Archives. So the Ancestral Archives is very expensive, and it's very large. But it does give you access to the Uptectons. So that's probably what HitEmUp is going for. Now, the Witness is going to go ahead and be revealed here, but the NCL has to chase it around. Matadors can't shoot him. No. How about... Yes. Just pair a single Wraith with it and just hunt it down. IMO. Yep, an Uptecton is on the way, so first time seeing that mammoth. Again, the unit will have its main cannon revised a little bit so that it shoots a sequence of 5 shots. It's grounded during the sequence and stuff, so it'll be it'll feel more imposing, but it'll actually be doing less damage, particularly to armored units, because 1 armor reduces say it's like 5 shots of 10 damage each, then 1 armor reduces it by 5, right? So it goes from 50 to 45, whereas currently it just goes from 50 to 49. So it's not quite as powerful. Although I think it might actually have some armor pen because it was like important for some breakpoints or whatever back when the unit was a little bit less wieldy, a little bit less powerful, less exposed as being so blatantly strong that we had no idea. So yeah, at this point, I think my read was completely incorrect because EUD still has not put down his Atlas, but I was kind of thinking that maybe he had an opportunity to put his Atlas down before the Ancestral drops, and at that point, you've got pace to make lots of stuff. So immediately EUD responding to this Witness, see ya, nerd, you're out of here. I'm not sure that HitEmUp has seen the 3rd base, though. Again, he only made the 1 Witness. He just wants to keep making workers, although his stuff is idle for now. Which actually makes sense. He is fully saturated. But this might be like a 2-base timing where he just puts out as many units. You can see here, the badass Uptecton. It can walk over small units. And even pylons and depleted mineral fields. Or actually, any mineral field, I think? Yeah, that sounds about right. It's pretty sick. Pretty sick nasty. I promise it'll look super epic when I get the new attack animation in and stuff. All right, so Vestry making Shamans, but there is no extra stuff. Okay, we have multiple Palladiums being added. Maybe the idea here is going to be to set up like phalanxes on these sides to try to set up for a contain or something. 3rd base is coming up for our Protoss player, though. And this force just, once the Uptecton count goes above 1, you can't really make this force do much, I feel like. You know, there's no drops to combat onto it. there's not really that much in terms of the actual gateway unit. So I don't know. It's hard to say for sure, but with this mammoth unit over here, it definitely feels to me like, I guess the Zealot count is going to start rising pretty soon. It's actually Mass Draconet. He might be worried about air units, right? The new Uptecton doesn't have its air weapon anymore, so that's actually a pretty significant move. Scribe going to go ahead and scout after dropping the Nexus at the 3rd location. I said it earlier in the previous video, but the new Impetus version has these 3 entrances into the 3rd base, what would have been the 3rd base in previous versions. So now everybody's always going to take the low ground one. They were already starting to do that anyway, which is fine. But it does mean that it's probably quite more difficult to hold this, which might mean that you just go for a horizontal split. And that seems to be what EUD is thinking. He has not set up any action on around these bridges, which would be a good choice if he can. He's just sort of waddling his units back and forth in a sort of line. And will he get close enough to actually see the army massing up by the bridge? We're about to find out. A couple shots going to go haywire here. Just softening up some of these units. The Zealot's actually falling pretty early. Might give EUD a little bit of an advantage if he can deploy the Phalanx line and then fall back towards it. Ecclesiasts are going to go down now. And so the Gateway Army has been completely nullified pretty much. I mean, the Draconens are still quite scary. With enough Shamans and Phalanxes, you definitely could hold up versus this, but the Ancial's off to the side, so that's not going to be helpful. And I guess there was only the 2 Phalanxes. Yeah, the Phalanx count didn't really spike up very much. So when you look at the amount of investment here, I think roughly our players have the same amount of resources left over. I mean, HitEmUp put way more money into the Objectons, obviously. But that's going to crack the initial gate open. And I do feel like at this point, UD is kind of in a lot of trouble, right? He delayed his Tier 2 massively. He's actually got a lot of money floated in the bank. I can't quite tell. Maybe the replay is actually a little bit messed up here. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, no, I guess he puts the Atlas down now, but I don't know. Like at some point, maybe during the lead up to that fight, he floated a lot of money. And he has pretty much lost all of his army. He doesn't really have that much over here. So, yeah, that's a little awkward. Maybe catching EUD off a little bit here. This is one of those games where I think, you know, I got to shout out my boy Crankendow. He's offered to basically look through the replays and see which ones are like worthy of a cast, like rated out of a percentage of how exciting it is. Which means, unfortunately for him, he will have the results of those games spoiled and like kind of the way that the games work out spoiled. I would not have casted that game, and maybe not even the previous one, had somebody like Crank done that for me. So I gotta appreciate him. But hey, you can't have the good games without the bad games. I think that's what Artosis sometimes said. There you go. That was a game that was quite unremarkable, where unfortunately for EUD, he just didn't have his spending under control. But no worries, we got more games where that comes from, so let's hop into the number 4 of the set. And for game number 4, we have actually the same spawns, but on a different map. It's EUD in the bottom left as the Cyan Terran, and HitEmUp as, what is this brown? Dark olive. EUD having some words after the engram. I actually feel like the new Uptecton, or sorry, the new, what is it? The new Matador, the fact that it can move so fast, you can tank shots for the Blackjacks, which get more movement speed. You can rend the one armor of the pylon, although it doesn't matter for the Blackjack, but it matters to the Matador. So I don't know, there's certain details there where I feel like the Blackjack Matador army could definitely have some pretty significant words to say about that, especially if it's only one gate production, if HitEmUp is going as greedy as possible. The other thing, too, is that if you just go for drops, you nullify all of the investment in the, choke location. You can drop like two Trojans, where you can even, I mean, on this map it's a bit harder, but on Impetus you could like walk over here and then just elevator. And you can probably overwhelm the Gateway Army because it's very small. So there's a couple of options. You can even just use the drops for harassment and not actually for a dead set play onto like trying to end the game with a Doom Drop or something. So I feel like there's still stuff there. But I did like that EUD went for the macro. It's just that he went for macro and then he spent everything on tier 1. He only got tier 2 after his army got wiped. So we already talked about that. I feel like maybe the other thing to point out too, that I always try to give all the players a benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're practicing something and just seeing how it goes. Maybe they've been playing like 20 games and this is their 21st game, and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not sure what the circumstances were. All I see is this game in a vacuum, and so I try not to be too harsh on any one particular decision or what have you. But I still think that there is a lot of advocacy I could make for the play of going for that very fast Atlas, because if you see your opponent doing what HitEmUp has been doing, he has been going for the Scout, or the Tech, right? He's turtled up on Derelict, he turtled up, teched to the Synthetic Synod, and won with that, because it was probably like an unfamiliar composition if I had to guess. I don't know if EUD's actually played it too much. And then, in the context of the play on the last map, because we're skipping over the second one, which was a little bit more deranged, I would say, with the Lattice play. You don't see that too often. And in fact, I think HitEmUp actually tried to practice Lattice, and then it got absolutely dumpstered, like, later on once EUD knew what to do about it. So that's what I've been told anyway. I haven't actually seen that game, so can't speak to it too much. But yeah, going through all of that anyway, verbally speaking, and seeing all that stuff, I do feel like when we're going through the motions of what HitEmUp has been doing and trying to analyze it, seeing what are the cracks in the armor here, like how can we actually get through and maybe breach this. If you want to go the aggressive style, I think what you can do is you can opt for a drop. You can also you can just opt for a drop directly onto the engram and try to overwhelm it that way. You can load the deployed Matador in for 4 transport space instead of 2, so that as soon as you drop it, it starts to rend the armor. I don't think it's actually that important though, because currently the siege animation is very, very quick, which is something that I wanted to revise at some point, but at this point the unit is already niche enough. I don't need to like nerf it with animation timings or anything. But at some point we're going to be making that a little bit more sane. Anyway, that is another thing to point out and say, like, hey, we've got... I think there are some options if you want to be aggressive and punish the greed. But if you want to be aggressive and punish the greed, versus being macro and punish the greed, I think the macro way is actually through tech and not necessarily through mass bases, because you don't have the answer to what he's teching up to. And the other thing I'm noticing about EUD is that even though he sometimes makes the star pad, and pretty much often makes a star pad for the purpose of the Anseal, one of the things that he almost rarely, I've never actually seen him do in these games so far, is go for a scout. Now again, we've only seen 2 games where it's gotten to the point where he's had star pad. So maybe that's something that he can incorporate into his play, and that way he can decide, okay, it's Grand Library, well, I need to tech so that I can respond to the Uptectons if that is indeed what's coming out. Oh, it's, or it's not Grand Library, I meant Ancestral Archives. It uses the old Grand Library graphic now. So it's Ancestral Archives, okay, that's what I need to do. Oh, it's Synthetic Cyanide, well, I can mass Goliath that and, just mass expand. And then I can throw too many units at them to control or whatever, right? And so that's like the way to overwhelm them before they can get to that critical mass. Or I can tech, there's like options there. But I feel like right now, the tier 4 tech of the Disciple branch, which is the Ancestral Archives, which is ridiculously expensive to access, especially with more than 1 right now. It's also very space inefficient, I would say, or not inefficient, but just it takes up a lot of space. I feel like that's an option where you have to worry about yourself, like, okay, what exactly am I going to do in this situation? And you probably want to just go straight into a higher tech option. And yeah, anyway, I feel like I've spent way too long talking about that one thing, but hopefully it was interesting enough to babble about, like, the sort of push and pull about TVP in this situation. And right now, we don't have that many T victories, so we're existing in a very heavy theory space right now. And one of the things that I really like that Neblime said, and I've quoted it already in a cast over before, he said that the patches will continue until skill improves or until results improve, something like that. The win rate improves, I don't know. Which is partially in jest, but also partially to say that, like, on the one hand, I'd love to get theoretical and be like, okay, what if the Korean Terrans played this and they got super good at, like, optimizing all the build orders, and they figured out, like, okay, you can do this and that, and this is the response to that, and you gotta watch out for this, and blah 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 blah. And like, okay, let's imagine that, and let's imagine the Protoss counter response. Like, that's really interesting to me, and I can talk theory about that all the day. But I also think that when I look at this, we should probably be balancing around the data that we can gather, and that is entirely based around what the players we have are right now. So if Protoss just seem impenetrable for Terrans specifically, but then they lose to Zerg a lot, like, okay, well, hey, there's something where we can do a give and take. We can say, hey, Zerg, stop beating up Protoss so much without, needing to put in a little bit more skill, obviously. And same for Protoss, like, maybe make it so that the strategies are a bit more varied, because maybe it's true that EUD has been grinding out so many games, right, that he's actually tried to analyze and figure out every single unit, every single angle that he could possibly take using all of the units that Cosmonarchy offers, and there's 50 per race, so there's a lot of units, and he still hasn't found an answer. Like, okay, if that's true, then yeah, we probably do need to make some changes, and I'm fine saying that. So I appreciate everybody joining us for this ride. Seeing how things evolve. I know some of you guys are just going to watch the videos. Maybe some of you guys will join the Discord server. We got over 500 people there right now, and we are still ongoing. And yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be very interested in seeing where this evolves. Some of you guys are even going to start playing or have already been playing, and I appreciate that as well. And of course, we always appreciate donations to the Ko-fi page if you want to help support further project development. The Argosy is going to be the development of choice for HitEmUp. He will be going for heavy air this time around. He has said before that he really likes Solarians, the new carrier. It is a bit different than the original one. It has 12 stewards instead of 8 interceptors. Stewards and interceptors operate a little bit differently statistically, but mostly operate the same way. A little bit less randomness, a little bit more responsivity. And we actually saw Solarians show up in that last game on Sideshow, Hepsea versus the Shambler. Unfortunately, a very anticlimactic ending for those Solarians, but we saw how powerful they could be when you had enough of them. And for Terran, I feel like the response to that has hitherto been Sundogs at tier 2. And that kind of makes sense if your opponent's going like double Argosy or triple Argosy or whatever and building a ridiculous number of Solarians. That's something that you got to watch out for. So let's see what it is. Is it going to be the Solarian? Is it going to be the Solarian Rush? Yes, it is. Okay, there we go. Needed a little bit extra moolah to make that one happen. Second Engram and third Warden. It's going to be a 2-base Solarian Rush. He's kept his eyes on the enemy army this whole time. Anseal is on the way. I would really like for this Anseal to, after clearing this Witness, just fly in and see what he does. Like, what can you see? Can you at least scout? Because when you detect a structure, you can see what it's training and you can see what the progress bar is. That's a feature of Cosmonarchy that people are slowly waking up to as like, oh my god, this is really impactful and I should definitely use this. You know, again, at these, what would you say, these high, these high skill areas where you have the baseline mechanical skill, you have some understanding, you got people grinding out a lot of games and trying to see what's going on. And then you need to be able to see, like, okay, what are the small details that I can get? And indeed, he does fly in. He will click on the Argosy. We saw the hashed line there, the dashed line for the selection. And we expect that he did indeed click on that. Unfortunately, his Anseal will not survive. Absolutely ass-blasted, but it got valuable information. He knows that it's Solarians. Now he needs to switch into, indeed, Goliath production. Now, here's another thing. Here's another thing about the way that the Solarian works, right? Obviously, what's one way to deal with the Solarians, or carriers in StarCraft 1, is to destroy their interceptors. But interceptors in Cosmonarchy are stewards. They do not cost resources to train, but they do take a lot longer in terms of time, and there's 12 of them, so if you wipe all of the stewards of a Solarian, it's going to be out of commission for a very long time, and there it's just wasted resources, right? So that was our method of, our vector of choice for balancing them out so that they don't maybe to turn into an impossible math problem quite so easily. There's also a lot more splash damage in Cosmonarchy in general compared to the way that StarCraft 1 tended to have it. Now, Goliaths are going to be great for sniping individual stewards, for sniping at the Solarians if they can get access to them, and they have really, really strong scaling. You can see here that HitEmUp was thinking about taking that as his natural, but he has to fall away, and he never made another witness, so he doesn't even know that his opponent is falling away at 2, where 12 o'clock will be his third base of choice. It's a little bit harder to reinforce, so that's interesting. By the way, the Anseal also a great choice for trying to protect individual targets. You can see it's mass Goliath, dude. It's 6 Goliaths at a pop. That's EUD's choice here. On 3 bases, pumping out them Goliaths, and indeed, I think he'll have a very fearsome anti-air army. Will he have enough to deal with the ground? I feel like the Matadors, especially if they get deployed, will be more than enough to deal with the Zealots. I don't know about the Drakodons. I think you're kind of relying on the Goliaths to do both of those things because there are no phalanxes right now. But he is forming a little bit of a wall over here with a great amount of splits. The workers slowly returning to the neutral treasury over here. Don't get too confused by that. Again, I mentioned this in one of the previous casts, but when you see a neutral town center, you can return resources to it. This is for flying workers. Yes, we have flying workers in Cosmonarchy. Don't ask questions. Or do. Ask a lot of questions. We've got, what is that, the 3rd Solarian in the group? Yes. So 3 Solarians actually isn't that much. We're going to go into Empyreans for splash damage after, which is, I wouldn't say it's like a too befuddling of a choice. Actually, I have some vultures here for just some chaff, and the Atlas has started in the background, so we wanted to bank a little bit of those resources. Would love to see more Goliaths, though. Like, at this point, you don't want to hedge your bets, right? He does seek out the army over here. He'll get an eye on the Solarian count, sees that there are indeed 3 of them. And so he knows that, okay, I probably want a couple more Goliaths. The production has been continuous. It wasn't, like, canceled or whatever. And the Goliaths should do fairly well over here versus the Zealots, especially since the Solarians, they move slower in Cosmonarchy, so they are slower to get there. So let's see what ends up happening. Just a flurry of missiles. And now EUD can charge forward and looking very, very dominant because as he does, he will be able to try to pick off some of these Solarians. The flash shielding kicking in on that bottom one. Got to keep tabs on that. The Anseal's flying too far forward. Could get focused down, but instead they're just going to fly all the way into the enemy base, it looks like. And now trying to fight over this little ledge, but they've already lost so many of the stewards, they are not going to be as impactful. In fact, they might just get ambushed on the way out. A Gorgon here to slow them down would be excellent, but tier 2 is not even done yet. This Nexus is going to have to be canceled. 12 o'clock already set up. And will we see a dead Solarian is the question. I feel like it's not going to end up happening. The stutter step wasn't quite good enough, but hey, half HP on one, about a quarter or 3/4 of an HP on the other. Second Argosy here and switching into full Empyrean tech. We do have the engrams blocking this, but is 12 o'clock going to be scouted at any point? Can he know to send a couple of units that way? I'm not 100% sure. He's got some vultures out. Would love to see just like another round of them, and then he could just fly directly in. We are going to go straight into starports, but there isn't enough space for add-ons here unless he moves the fulcrums forward a little bit. So is he just going to go into Mass Gorgon, maybe some Valkyries? It's an option. It's a choice. Let's find out. A lot of gateways here for the Protoss. You can see he's gone up to 7 gate and just continuously producing units out of them for now. Needs more bases to support more of those gateways. I think he could probably add 2 more max on this particular base count. The Crucible speeds up unit production from structures. It also speeds up things like shield regeneration rate, structure attack rate if it's a tower, stuff like that. And now the Vultures have indeed spotted that 12 o'clock is up. Does he scout up here? I mean, I feel like the Scribe coming back to return is actually going to give up the game. Let's see if Eud is paying attention. Looks like maybe he is. So this is going to force an engagement. I think he's got a really nice position here. As the more of his units get up this ramp, yeah, the harder this is going to be to hold for HitEmUp. Now he is going to go ahead and launch the salvos from the Empyreans. They deal splash damage, but in a kind of a small radius. And, oh man, I'm not sure I like this position nearly as much. We need to get those Matadors on the front line. He's focus firing down. He's got one of the Solarians already. He does have a legion of Goliaths, admittedly. It is a ridiculous number of Goliaths, but some of his army is not actually engaging with the force. We've got Goliaths in the back, supporting the Goliaths in the front. Why build anything other than Goliaths? That's the question. Now, Solarians are indeed going to go down and get kaput. So there goes all of the free army. The Nexus has fallen. More units coming in? No. EUD is limited to whatever he has over here, and the gateway count has started to blossom. Goliath's going to focus down one more Empyrean and try to level down the era count a little bit here. But right now, he's actually been out-expanded by the Protoss. Despite losing this base over here, he's going to warp it an immediate one. This one's going to finish pretty soon. I guess he stopped this one coming in, so... You know, even though he's starting to set this one up, but he doesn't have that many workers over it. So we're effectively at 3.5 bases or 3.25 bases for both of our players right now. Actually, this is just going to be straight up 3. Okay, so I guess he hasn't been out-expanded. And this one is slowly coming online, or will have at some point. All right, let's see what Eud's got. He's going the Valkyries. I don't know about that. I think Gorgons would have been a better choice here versus the threats here. But I guess they're really good versus the Stewards, right? The stacked up interceptor-type units, so he's got to watch out for that. The Quarry's going to go down here. Where is the response to this attack? What is the response to all of the Zealots? Another reason why you might want to go for Gorgons here. The Masons could actually be drilled onto the enemy units. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. Doc's going to be sicked onto the Empyreans. They'll take a lot of the Drakodin shots as well, so that's helpful. Looks like only one Empyrean is actually with the fight. The other one is attacking the Treasury, which is not really ideal. Here's the Masons on the front line peeling for the Goliaths. There's only 6 of them left. More of them popping out now. Going to go ahead and try to focus down the Empyrean with a couple of shots. Vulture, Blackjack coming in here. The Drakodins are going to be a little bit helpless in a moment. These Goliaths staying alive. But can they stay alive versus all the Drakodins? I'm not so sure. Again, remember, he transferred all those workers to the bottom right, but I don't know how many of them actually survive. We got more Valks coming out of the starports. Still no switching to Gorgons. Now we're going to start to see some of them. Goliath staying alive. The Empyreans will go down. And remember, these Valks are taking Drakodin shots, so we're seeing less attacks actually levied at the Goliaths, which are a little bit more impactful there. So as we pan back up over here, bunch of workers... 110, in fact, for HitEmUp. He's kept on top of his production. We've got switch back into Solarians. Man, the mind games here. So I think what HitEmUp is thinking here, if I can speculate as to what he's imagining, is that, okay, my opponent's going to stop building Goliaths because the ground army is what really messed him up there. So now I'll build more Solarians, and my Goliaths will be... the lack of enemy Goliaths is going to prevent me from losing my army. But even still, he has been able to get into a favorable economic position. And that is kind of its own story to tell. Still no 6 o'clock base. We've got 4 bases up for the Protoss, 5 up for the Terran. But unfortunately, oh my god, random mines laid around. So this blackjack is kind of impactful because as Eud, oh, he didn't look at it fast enough. I was going to say he would have been able to see that there's more Solarians out and know that he needs to continue the Goliath production. A Didact is being started. So that is a very impactful unit. That's the Arbiter replacement. The Didact works such that it cloaks structures as well as units. It casts Dimensional Recall, which is like a persistent recall effect. Kind of links itself to a target location. Obviously, it's frozen during this channel and stuff. And then it also has Stasis still. Stasis only lasts 8 seconds instead of like the 40 or whatever it was in StarCraft 1. But it's a little bit, it requires a channel and all sorts of other stuff, but the battles can be decided anyway, so 8 seconds is still quite enough. Quite enough to make some power. He has to watch out for this one Empyrean that stayed alive. That's the only source of anti-air splash that the Protoss army has right now. Sharking forward over here. The Didact going with the rest of the army. I'm not sure about that. One of the things you can do, Hapsea has shown this in the past, is that you can use the Didact as sort of like a StarCraft 2 Nexus recall, where you just like attack in with an army and then recall the expensive units out there, and that can be quite debilitating for the enemy. So he's going to scout over here, Sino 6 o'clock base, but again, Eud has no idea that there's a Protoss army over here. He's going to find out now. We're starting to see some cataphracts out of this mantle. If we can get a lot more of those, we might be able to see some power. I've heard tales of cataphracts being better phalanxes versus Protoss units in particular, so we'll see about that. Big pincer over here, try to make things happen. The Gorgon's going to shark around, see what they can do. Didact going to stasis them, so that's going to be it for the Air Force for a little bit. Ground Force over here, kind of isolated. We're seeing a lot of workers end up dying over in this position. The Didact is recharging its energy. Looks like it's good to go for another stasis if he wants it. Kind of considering his targets. The Gorgon's coming in, providing more detection. I think the Ant Seals have gone down or gone haywire. Not sure where they are. Didact does go down. Okay, no more cloaking. No more cloaking available. But he's not on top of the production just yet. The Cataphract reducing some of the Zealot count at the very least. Yeah, the ground army's almost been annihilated here for both players, but there's still Drakken's up. I think we might be seeing another EUD-GG, dude. HitEmUp might just be on the... EUD might just be on a different kind of feel. Yeah, GG. All right, HitEmUp onto that fourth amount, that fourth dub. Pretty, I would say, comprehensive victories all in all. It has to be said that not the shiningest star in the night sky right now for EUD on the side of trying to figure out all the counters to all the crazy tech that Protoss can do. But I'm sure that even though it seems dim right now, like I mentioned in the middle of that game, right? Like there's going to be some, there's probably more changes in the pipe. Obviously, the Tecton still needs to have that main cannon change that I was talking about earlier. That'll definitely help versus armor. And, it's funny that he mentions armor on the Solarian. I was thinking that the Salamander will apply a polyite adhesive on its air attack. And that might actually be a pretty good choice in this situation. I was just thinking of it for anyways. Like, it'd be kind of thematic if it had a separate air weapon that just was single target and fired like 2 torpedoes and they applied a polyite adhesive. That'd be kind of neat. Now imagine if that ends up happening, that you can pair the Salamanders with, say, the Valkyries or the Sundogs, which fire extra volleys and stuff. And, suddenly you're, even the Goliaths themselves, you're suddenly doing a pretty good amount of damage to the high armor targets like the Solarian, the Star Sovereign, that sort of stuff. So anyway, the other option, of course, was the Seraph. Since it rends armor passively, you can throw Irradiates down to slap the enemy stewards and stop them from being able to really get too much done. But despite that, Eud trying a couple of things out. Let's see if he can score victory in the last game of this set. We are going to Maxiom for the final game of the set. We have HitEmUp in the top right and Eud in the top left. And was swapping laundry, apparently. Can you believe it? Now, what is Maxiom? Maxiom is like Axiom, but 4-spawn. It's the main, the natural, and the third, and it has the neutral treasuries. That's basically it. Unfortunately, HitEmUp can't keep destroying Eud with his Protoss. He has to switch gears and go to work. Some would say that this was his work, but he doesn't get paid for defeating Eud. Not yet, anyway. Maybe that'll be something later on. So what does Eud want to do? It looks like he's still going to go for the Fulcrum. I feel like this is a totally reasonable question, but I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I worry that Eud is like, I've tried every unit. I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about Optectons. And you know what? I think he's not the only Terran to do that. Let's see if he can come up with a response for now. It's funny because HitEmUp has tried playing a Terran. We need flash. Hell yeah, brother. He's tried to play a little bit of Terran. He said that it doesn't make sense to him or something. Something about Terran doesn't make sense to him. I'd love to hear more pointed feedback about what specifically he's having difficulty understanding about that. But would be cool. Would be cool. But we'll see. We'll see how we go. HitEmUp scouting wrong the first time. Is he box scouting? Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a box scout. Is it going to be a box scout for this guy? He hasn't actually decided yet. So we don't know if Eud is box scouting yet. He has his vulture. His vulture can go to the top right. That would probably be the main idea here. Man, I love force spawn maps. I can't wait for them to be everywhere and anywhere and everywhere. Quarry on the way. See what Mr. HitEmUp is going to be up against in a moment. Mason and Scribe arriving in the vantage point. And look at this. The Vulture is going to come down and kill the Scribe. It's already last scout, so HitEmUp knows where he is. But this is a choice. Instead of going to scout his opponent, he's going to kill his enemy scout to keep him guessing. Now that's an interesting play. Looks like it wasn't... Okay, no, never mind. He's just moving to the high ground or something. I'm not sure what he was doing there. I thought maybe he was trying to end scout off the back of that, but he's going to see that there's nothing up here. He's laying the mines a little bit too early here. This might, yeah, I think that he's realizing, okay, no, that was actually a last scout and not a something like that. Protoss tend to scout a little bit earlier than Terrans, I've noticed. They do like the pylon scout or the gate scout or whatever. And yeah, PvZ has been a real sore spot for Protoss. If you guys are worried about Protoss being OP in Cosmonarchy, you should see Zerg. And if you're worried about Zerg being OP, you should see Terran, because that's been the holy trinity so far. Terran beats Zerg, beats Protoss, beats Terran. That's how things have been going. And I kind of want to make it more like Terran favored versus Zerg, but not impossible, obviously. And Protoss favored versus Terran, but not impossible, obviously. I think that would be a better situation to try to reach equilibrium in. But I think in trying to adjust the TVP matchup, I fully admit there's a high likelihood that I've made TVZ even or ZVT, like from the Zerg's perspective, even harder. But, you know, I gave the Zerg a couple of interesting toys, so we'll see what they do with that. One gate embassy once again for HitEmUp. Looks like he's going to be scaling towards a similar result as per usual. Similar sort of situation. He's in the dark about what his opponent is doing, but the embassy will give him a witness, and then he'll be able to reveal that, in fact, it's the same exact stuff as before. Eud has he's gone for Treasury expand sometimes and Ministry expand others. And as far as I understand, the reason why he goes Ministry versus Treasury is purely because of the extra worker queue. He'll decide if he wants that or something else. Now we're going to have to wait and see when it comes to the expansion timing for both of these players. Lots of mines placed all over the place. Actually a really good tool for like advanced scouting. It will be a mass vulture choice. I think HitEmUp has said that he's played a lot of Terran and just built like ridiculous amounts of vultures and killed Protoss that way. But I also imagine that was during some kind of tech transition or something. Look at this! One base prostration stage. Oh my god. I guess it'll probably be a Mine Tyrant, but it could be a Pariahs. I don't know. I feel like Pariahs probably won't work out. Honestly, I feel like the Mine Tyrant could also backfire. It hasn't been revised yet, so it still has the seizure mind control idea instead of the kill my unit and then take it mind control idea, which the Demiurge has by comparison. I think Demiurge versus Zerg might actually be really, really tough for Zergs to adapt to. I think in practice you'll just make Kagralisks or Protathalors, because they will pretty much destroy the Demiurge before it can enter into its range. But a lot of what the Zerg likes to do is surround, right? So you can at least, if you can pick the Demiurges, then you don't get your units given over to them. So they just die a little bit later than they would otherwise. Now here comes the Vulture idea. We've got 10 of them. And only a Warden and 5 Dracodons right now. A 6th one on the way. More Vultures coming in. Yeah, seeing no expansion. 12 Vultures. 12 Vultures, by the way. This could be a really big hit. It's going to be a Potentate. That's an interesting choice. All right, he's committing onto it. Reducing that count. Losing... Right now, 1 Dracodon for every 2 Vultures, but now he's going after the workers. Oh my god. He sees the prostration stage. It's all done by 1 pylon, mind you. This Dracodon getting caught over, that's definitely not the right move. I think he's just going to kill a prostration stage. He's got enough Vultures to do that. Land some mines, saying, oh yeah, I hope you didn't want to try to defend this. Unfortunately, that one does go down. Will he get the 1 Potentate out in time? I don't think so, man. He's going to see if he can go for it, but that mine, oh, the heat-seeking missile from downtown picks the target the farthest away, stuns all 4 of them. There goes the prostration stage. I think EUD's finally going to get on the board. I'm a big fan, dude. Finally, we see Terran supremacy. Clearly, the better player. And, you know, listen, this is the kind of stuff you have to get away with sometimes. Gotta fear the Vulture spam. Like, what can HitEmUp even do from this position? He's lost all of his tech. His tech structure has been lost. He's even going to lose some mining efficiency. Oh, that's a good amount of stuns. Oh my god. Does he not realize the one vulture? Okay, never mind. He's definitely gonna see it. Oh, he gets another kill. The sass. Well, behind this, there's a quarry and a ministry, so we're gonna have 4 worker production pretty soon. We have 4 fulcrum production, so we are absolutely going to see more units come out. It's gonna be 7 vultures. There's actually only 3 Dracodons here. Like, conceivably, he could just charge up the ramp and kill the Dracodons, especially if he avoids the Warden. Yeah, I think that's what he's gonna do. I bet you guys never thought you'd see Dragoons or something like it losing to vultures, but there it is. No, don't stun yourself. Oh, no. Oh, the other group of workers that get stunned, too. Utter devastation. Well, there's one vulture haplessly attacking a pylon up there, but hey, maybe he'll get interested in the the worker count instead. Yeah, get him. Oh, never mind. He decided to attack the Dracodon. Can we get another dam? Talk about my last game before I have to go to work and I just get vultured out of existence. The Goliaths are on the front. They're a little bit far forward. What else do we have? There's so many brown units on the map, but they're all of them. Every single one is mine. Zinwaldite Brown, by the way, against Beaster Brown. Dude, it's the tale of 2 Browns. It's going to be a Stargate follow-up. All right, now, listen, I will fully admit, if HitEmUp wins here, Toss is OP, nerf Toss. That's what I'm going to say. There's no way he can win from this position. But he's going to give it a good old college try just to see what the situation is like. The Fulcrums are actually idle right now, but they've already made a number of units. And there's only 4 Dracodons, and soon to be a 5th. Like, I think with the Goliaths and the Vultures combined, we can definitely, especially with those 2, yeah, surely this is the death push. I mean, 5 Dracodon with a Warden could be kind of big. He's got a defensive Warden over here as well. He's slowly making his workers, but he's down by 23. Goliath's going to front run. Tank some damage. One of them is going to go down nice and early. But you can't really compete against this. One of your Dracodons is already wounded. This is probably where it ends. We have 2 Dracodons left. One of them almost done. Yeah, the Warden's going to go down. GG has to be called, and EUD gets on the board after all. My man. Feel good win. Or maybe not, because you think about the other 4 games that you played, and you're like, God damn, I should have won at least 2 of those. Or something like that. But hey, some interesting thoughts. Maybe my commentary was useful for creating ideas, incepting them into Terran players' heads worldwide. But I'm absolutely interested in seeing where the matchup develops. After some of the Uptecton changes that still have to come in, maybe some of the other changes for some of the Tier 2 Terran Air, like the Valkyrie and the Salamander are in my sights, like I mentioned earlier. So we'll see. We'll see how they go. But anyway, that's that. Check us out. Stay subscribed. We got new videos coming out every day, so I'll see you guys later. Peace.